To the gods, Kratos defeated the basilisk brought forth by the Persians. But this small victory would not satisfy the man who had come to be known as the Ghost of Sparta.
Is this all you would have me do? Is there nothing else?
God of War Chains of Olympus for the PSP is a prequel to the original God of War, which is one of the best games to ever come out for the PS2. In Chains of Olympus, you once again take control of Kratos, who has to pay off his debts to the gods by performing various tasks. The story begins with Kratos fighting against Persian forces in the Greek shores of Attica. Kratos then moves on to do battle in other places, including the city of Marathon and the Temple of Helios. The storyline in Chains of Olympus isn't quite as complex as its predecessors, but it is well written and includes some foreshadowing that ties in with what happened in God of War 1 and 2. God of War fans won't be disappointed. There are many console to portable games that have failed in the control department, but Chains of Olympus isn't one of them. Developer Ready at Dawn successfully ported the infamous God of War control scheme from the PS2 to the PSP. All of Kratos' moves are intact, with light and heavy attacks performed with the square and triangle buttons, grabs done by pressing the circle button, along with combos, juggles, and magic spells. However, two major control changes were made on the PSP version. With the lack of a right analog stick, Ready at Dawn had to figure out how to map the evade and magic attack buttons. Dodging is now done by holding the L and R triggers, while magic is done by holding the R button with a corresponding face button. The changes don't hinder gameplay one bit. In fact, some would say it's an improvement. Besides combat, Chains of Olympus uses the PSP controls for just about everything, making the players feel as if he or she controls everything in the game. For example, you have to hold a button to open treasure chests, or pull the nub back to launch a catapult, or even finish off an enemy by pressing a combination of buttons. It's very intuitive, keeps gamers involved, and simply makes the game fun. There's even a pretty mature mini-game where pressing a combination of buttons will give you replenished health, if you know what I mean.
Thank you, my lord.
Chains of Olympus is arguably the best looking game on the PSP, hands down. At first glance, you could mistake this for a PS2 game, considering how beautiful the graphics actually are. Detailed backdrops, fluid animation, and cool lighting effects all run at a smooth 30 frames per second. Every enemy has their own unique look, and each level is distinctively different. Rendered cutscenes are also sprinkled throughout the game and look great on the PSP, but be aware that there is partial nudity in this game.
Where has Atlas taken you?
I do not know, Kratos.
The only minor gripe I had was the camera angles. The panouts and wide shots are cool when Kratos is running around, but I don't need camera angles that make it difficult to see an enemy or find an item. There were even times where I would be getting hit by an enemy I couldn't even see, but it didn't make the game any less playable. However, the camera problems aside, this is a fantastic looking game, in my opinion the best graphically on the PlayStation Portable. The audio in God of War Chains of Olympus is top-notch. The in-game soundtrack is full of orchestra-style themes that add intensity to the already chaotic visuals. The voice acting is also done very well. The game's narrator, Kratos, and other characters in the game spew out their lines in believable fashion.
You again. The walls of Tartarus would not hold Atlas, and they would not hold me either. The gods have obviously taken pity on their slaves. You underestimate me, Charon. This time I will not be so merciful.
Now, the God of War games are known for its puzzles. During certain parts of the game, you'll have to pull levers, move objects, and do other things to advance a level. The puzzles aren't difficult, but they do give you a sense of accomplishment when completed, and it gives you a break from tearing the heads off of your enemies. Now, speaking of enemies, this is the one area where the game is somewhat lacking. There isn't a wide variety of enemies, and there are very few boss battles. As you progress through the game, you'll find yourself fighting the same old enemies most of the time. However, the variety in weapons and attacks you use to kill those enemies make up for it. On the weapons front, Kratos is equipped with his trusty Blades of Chaos, and his attacks are spot on like his moves in the other God of War games. Kratos can pull off various combos, including throws and juggles, all of which are fairly easy to do. The minigame-like finishers are also in Chains of Olympus, where the player has to press a series of buttons when prompted in order to kill off an enemy. It's fun to do, and it simply never gets old. Kratos also gets a powerful glove later on in the game called the Gauntlet of Zeus. Combos and throws can also be performed with this weapon, which is actually stronger than the Blades of Chaos. Besides weapons, Kratos gets 2 magic spells to work with and a defense shield. They're somewhat limited in comparison to the weapons, but you can power them up as you progress to the game. And just keep in mind, you can do the same thing and power up your weapons as well. Doing so will add more advanced moves to the magic attacks. Overall, the puzzles, weapons and magic, great music score, and excellent voice acting result in presentation that most PSP games can't match. One of the great things about God of War Chains of Olympus is that the replay value is pretty high. In the treasures section of the main menu, gamers can play the Challenge of Hades mode. It's here where Kratos has to complete a number of tasks, for example, killing 50 soldiers by only using a certain magic attack. The various challenges are exactly what you expect them to be, challenging. Now there's also a God mode, which is unlocked once you beat the game. God mode is basically the hardest difficulty setting, so if you felt like the other difficulty modes weren't challenging enough, play it in God mode. Easter eggs are abundant in this game as well, but I won't spoil them for you. Just beat the game and find out what they are. For the longest time, PSP fanboys have been looking for that one game they can be proud of. Well, Sony has finally found their killer app for the PSP in God of War Chains of Olympus. From the great visuals, accurate controls, kick-ass presentation, and high replay value, Chains of Olympus will keep PSP gamers coming back for more. Well, that's it for this episode. For more on The Reboot, make sure to log on to our blog. It's at www.rebootshow.com. Also, if you're on Facebook, make sure to join our Facebook group. And if you're on MySpace, add The Reboot as a friend. Also, if you want to play me online, you can on Xbox Live. My gamer tag is RE10, that's REE10. I'm Rio Pacino for The Reboot, and we'll see you next time.